Hello and welcome to episode 28 of Montague Island Books. And our guest author tonight is actually overseas in France. This is the second British author we've had overseas. The first one was in the early days when we had Leslie Cryer, or LM Cryer, and now we've got another one, so that's nice. Now, our author guest today was born in Glasgow, where she lived until 2005, when she and her family moved to a rundown, agriculturally tied bungalow with an acre of land in Cornwall. She started a small holding from scratch, retrained as a horticultural tutor, and also worked as a skills coordinator for the rural business school. She began commercial cider making in 2011, and until recently ran a profitable small craft cider business. After successfully removing the agricultural occupancy condition on her home, she relocated to a small holding in France. Now, she's had 4 non-fiction books out. One of them has been rewritten, so I suppose you class it as 3, but in total there are 4. And she's now got a fiction book out as well. Now, the fiction book is called Mum's the Word, and it says, when Anne-Marie Ross murders her abusive husband and feeds him to the pigs, she thinks she's got away with murder and secured the future of a Scottish cider farm. But she soon finds herself having to keep more than one deadly secret to protect those closest to her. As 4 women embrace their newfound independence, Anne-Marie is tormented by the threat of discovery. A darkly comic tale of murder, friendship, and love, and with a quote that says wickedly funny. So I'm very delighted to say that our author guest tonight is Lorraine Turnbull. Hello, Lorraine.
Hello, Joe. Thank you for having me.
Nice to have you. And I hope it's not too hot for you over there in France.
Oh, no. It's just as well you don't have smell-o-vision, because honestly, I'm sitting in a really small room upstairs and it is 32 degrees. The window is wide open, but I'm struggling slightly. So if you see me doing this, I'm not drunk, I'm just very warm.
Maybe you need to get some liquids down you just to keep cool. Yeah.
Well, do you know, even though I am a cider maker, I have a tiny little glass of red wine because I am in France. And after I finish this interview, I'm going for a swim.
Well, I'm on the Pur cider.
Ah.
I thought I would match the cider. I would go with the cider theme tonight, so that's why I'm on that. So now, as I said, I just mentioned about the fiction book.
Yeah.
You've done a series of non-fiction books. Do you want to tell everybody a little bit about those?
About the non-fiction books?
Yeah.
Right. Well, as you said in your introduction, I moved from Glasgow to basically an agriculturally tied bungalow with an acre of land. There was no small holding, but after watching Hugh Fernley-Whittingstall and just saying, we could do that, we could do that, move away from Glasgow, it would be okay. How hard can it be? So we moved to Cornwall, which was a huge move.
Yeah.
And we started a small holding. And then I started working for, first of all, Duchy College, teaching horticulture, and then for the Rural Business School. And the same thing kept getting asked at the end of all the courses that I was running. They would, oh, but it's a great life, but how do you make money doing it? And I decided to write a book. So I started writing it, and then I was approached by a publisher, and he had a kind of certain idea of what he wanted me to write. And I'm sure you'll find out in this interview, I'm actually quite strong-minded. And I went, no. A book like that will not work. There are millions of books on how to keep chickens and how to do this. And I said, what you need is a book telling people how to do this and make money out of it. Because everyone would love to move to a small holding and live a country life, but they can't afford to do it unless they can make it pay.
Yeah.
So that was the idea. I wrote the book. I have to say it was the easiest thing I have ever done. And I taught, I mean, I used to write lesson plans.
Right.
And it was just, I looked at it as an extension of that.
Yeah.
And every day I used to sit down at my really old laptop and just literally turn out a chapter a day, a chapter a day. And then I would go back and edit it and say things like, oh my God, that really is rubbish. And where did I find that information? So I would have to put the reference in, and it kind of grew from there. And I think the teaching really helped me to write non-fiction. The hard part isn't writing the book. The hard part afterwards is editing it, doing the references and doing indexing. God, doing indexing. Oh, so hard.
I suppose that's one thing you don't have to worry about with fiction, isn't it? You know, I hadn't really thought about the indexing side of it before. It just... Oh,
it's a nightmare. And of course, as a self-published author, I mean, this was great. I was doing a hybrid publishing job, and I'd never done this before. I'd never written a book before, and it was very hard because I was learning as I was going along and trying not to look too stupid. But I was learning loads, and then the book came out to fabulous acclaim. I mean, it sold a huge amount, which was brilliant.
Yeah.
But I didn't get an awful lot of money for it.
Sadly, that's what happened, isn't it? Yeah.
Well, and that made me sit and think, because I'm Scottish.
You know,
I like my money. I know what I want to do with it. And I thought, I'm not doing this anymore. So I spoke to some people. I joined the Alliance of Independent Authors. I got some support there. And I started writing a second book. And I thought, I'm going to do this on my own. The whole lot, the cover, the book, the indexing, everything, I'm going to do it all on my own. And then lockdown happened. So my first book was published in May 2019. And then we had lockdown. And I was still writing because it kept me sane. In France, we had this, you can go out for shopping, but you have to fill out a form, and you cannot go more than 10 kilometres outside your home. You can go for a walk, but it must be less than 1 kilometre from your home. And I thought, I can't do this. So part of the thing to keep me sane was to sit and write. So I used to get up in the morning at 6 and sit and write for a couple of hours, and then do my normal day stuff, you know, keep house, make lunch, blah, blah, blah. And then go for my short walk in the evening. And we managed to get through it like that. Wow. So the second book was independently published, and it came out in, when did it come out? 2020. And then the third book came out in 2020. And then the fourth book came out at the end of 2020. And it was the original book that I'd written, but I'd managed to get my copyright back and updated it and made it more like how I wanted it to be, because I think as an author, you have a voice. And I was getting emails and messages and messages on social media saying, oh, we love your book, but we want you to talk more about this. Yeah. So I took that on board and I republished it. So I would say I'm probably more comfortable with the non-fiction than I am with the fiction. When I wrote Mum's the Word, it came as a result of watching, it was something I'd seen on British news. And then I started backtracking to find the information out in the local papers. And it was a man who'd murdered his wife. It was a tragic accident. Yeah. But the only reason he got caught was because he claimed the insurance money too soon afterwards. and people started asking questions, and I used to be a policewoman in a previous lifetime. And I said to my husband, you know, I bet you there's millions of people who bump off their husband or bump off their wife or whatever, and they never get caught.
Yeah.
And I said, that's what I'm going to write. So it was great, just writing it and putting some of the agricultural background, and obviously the cider making was in there as well. And I have 3 Cocker Spaniels, so I had to put the Cocker Spaniels in it also.
Yeah, of course.
But it was great, but it's a totally different style of writing. So I had to learn grammar, punctuation, how to... the formatting was totally different as well, so I had to learn all that. So it was like learning to write all over again.
Wow. So was it this murder that you heard about that actually gave you the idea for the story, and you decided, I'm going to write about this?
Oh yeah. I'd read about this farmer being killed by pigs. Now, most farmers know their animals. They know when you don't go in. They know which ones you can move around with and you're comfortable with. And I had to get more background information. So imagine you're sitting at your computer and you're sending these random emails out to farmers you don't know. You're thinking, oh, he's a pig farmer. He'll know this. Oh, how many pigs would it take to eat a human body?
Did anybody reply?
2 of them replied and said, can I have a bit more information about who you are? I think they actually thought I was planning.
Yeah.
You know, and then I spoke to a couple of people at the Rural Business School, and they put me in touch with pig farmers, and they were saying, oh no, our pigs are really friendly. They would never do anything like that. And I eventually got the information up from an American farmer. And he was, sure, 4. You only need 4. And I'm thinking, and he says, but you need to watch because they don't eat the teeth. And I'm like, right, okay.
Oh, lovely subject to discuss.
It is, and this is the thing, because your part of your writing is your research, and you're finding out things that you didn't know, and you're meeting these people who, a lot of them, that you keep in touch with because they really are interesting.
Yeah,
so
they become your experts, don't they, I suppose? Yeah, but that's great. So basically, what would you say was the hardest difference between doing the non-fiction and the and the fiction, because you get involved in everything, don't you? The cover, because you're self-publishing, you do the editing, the covers, and everything. So, what would you say was the sort of the biggest difference or hardest difference?
Well, I found the non-fiction quite easy, and I think the reason was because I've taught before, and I've had to make resources, I've had to make lesson plans, risk assessments, and that seems quite normal for me. So the teaching side, when you're writing a non-fiction book like that, it's a how-to book. It's just a natural extension. When I wrote the fiction, it was completely different. And of course, like most people, I have children. I have grown-up children who are ever so quick to judge and evaluate you. So, my son, I said, I'm going to send you this chapter. I just want you to read it and tell me what you think. And his first thing was, is there any sex in it? And I said, no, it's a murder book. And then he said, right, send me it. And I said, and then a week later, Kieran, have you read it? No, I'm really busy, Mum. So a week later, Kieran, have you read it? No. And he said, I read the first couple of pages. You need to work on your punctuation. You don't seem to know where to put a comma. So then I spoke to my daughter and sent her the whole of the first chapter. And it came back and there was red lines and commas and you can't use this, you've used it earlier on. But it really kind of brought home the fact that as a non-fiction, as a fiction writer, I had so much to learn. And I took what they said. I got a couple of books about punctuation and grammar, but it's hard when you're writing. So what I find was I write and then I go back and I try and read it out loud to see if it makes sense when I'm reading it. And then I can judge whether my punctuation is okay or not. And then when it's done, I send it to a very good friend here in France. He's English, but he lives here in France. And he copy reads it.
Ah, right.
And that really helps because he'll say, you use this certain word, and he says, I don't know if it's a Scottish thing, but he says, English people won't understand that. And he said, you're trying to reach a big audience. You need to try and stop using these. He says, I'm not trying to take, because it's a book set in Scotland. He says, I'm not trying to take away from that. But he said, you want your readers to understand. And I'd never thought of that. So
I think it can work two ways, that, because I've read a few sort of crime books based in Scotland, and sometimes when they put, if we're in the pub and having a chat and we chuck some jargon in, sometimes it makes you wonder what it is, and you'll go onto Google or whatever, and to find out what it is. Yeah,
I mean, I just finished. My husband bought me for Christmas Shaggy Bean.
Ah, yeah,
and it's an interesting book. It's not an easy read.
I believe so.
And the reason that I wanted to read it was, well, number one, because it had such a good write-up, and I thought, okay, you have to read these things and make your own judgment. But I wanted to see how he dealt with Scottish dialect, because he's from Glasgow. And I looked at it, and even I was, because I've been away from Glasgow because I moved to Cornwall, and then I moved to France. So I've been away from Glasgow for a long time. And there was things in the book, and I thought, even I don't understand that. And I am a Glaswegian, and I'm like, and I had to read and then reread it to be able to understand it. So none of us are perfect.
No, but it just makes it interesting. So what would you, in writing the fiction book, what would you say was the best part of the writing that?
Oh, getting the idea down in paper. Because I know a lot of people, I know an awful lot of novelists, they plan. They have boards everywhere with who the characters are and the storyline. I can't do that.
Right.
I have a rough idea, and then it's in my head. And it's in my head until the book is done. And it's really annoying because I'll go to sleep at night. Well, I'll try and go to sleep at night. I'm not a great sleeper. And my mind's really active, and it's just that minute before you nod off and something pops in. And I'm like, oh, and the light's on. And
inspiration.
I've got a pen and a bit of paper, and I'm having to write down something about what Anne-Marie's mother said, or I need to change that because I put the wrong thing on and I need to go back and change it. And I know that if I leave it, when I wake up in the morning, I won't remember it. Yeah. So the whole story's in my head the whole time, and that's quite difficult.
So do you start at page 1 and work through to the end? Or do you did, so you just work? Yeah.
And I think it's really daunting to start. And what lots of people have said to me, and I think is true, if you get something down, you can work from there. And then you can always go back, because we all use word processors and laptops and whatever now. You can go back and you can read it and you think, God, that's such a rubbish start. And then you delete a whole paragraph, and everyone says the first sentence is key. And it's true, because it's that first sentence that sucks you in.
Yeah.
And it's like trying to think of the first sentence, and then, I don't know, it's like, I think I was down the bar down in the village, and it just came to me, and I ran in and I said, do you need to give me a pen and a piece of paper? And she's like, what's the matter? I need to write this down right now. And then I went home and I said, that's it. And it was the same with the title. It just jumped in there.
Yeah.
So you never know. Sometimes these things take on a life of their own.
Yeah. So do you tend to, were you saying that, you have all the story in your head?
Yeah.
And, you don't really plan. So do you just sort of write when the ideas are there, or do you have a set plan every day to write?
I'm very worried I'm going to forget. So I write in the morning because I'm nearly 60 now. So I find it very hard to do a whole day.
Yeah.
And then still know, like, it's 6 o'clock at night. What am I doing tomorrow? Have I done this? Did I pay that bill? As the day goes on, I get tired and I get muddled. And I kept saying to the kids when we were at home, don't ask me to read any school letters after 4 o'clock because I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
So now I just say I'm going to get up at 6 a.m.
Yeah, like you were saying, yeah.
And there's no phone calls. There's no people annoying you or putting the kettle on or anything like that. And I will sit and just write till about 9. Now, obviously, there's some days you're thinking, well, I've got an appointment or it's a lovely day, I'm going out or whatever. But when I get up to write, I get up at 6 and I just sit and I write for 3 hours. And it doesn't matter how many words I put down. Sometimes I'll go back and I edit. Sometimes I'll do a whole chapter. Sometimes I'll be on fire and it's like I'll write a whole chapter and then I'll go away for a walk and then I'll come back and I'll just keep going all day. Yeah. But I must start in the morning or else it's just no good for me.
Yeah. Yeah, so you've got that sort of structure time-wise rather than, sort of, I've got to do 2,000 words or whatever. It's more.
But the story can change.
Yeah.
And this is the trouble because you've got this in your head and then you've created these great characters. So it's like, out of Mum's the Word, Anne-Marie is the woman who commits the first murder. And the trick was to make everybody understand and sympathise with her. But then her mother, and the mother was supposed to be a background character. And she's been one of the most important, if not the most important character in the book.
So she spoke to you the loudest. So
So I found myself changing the story and I'm like, I wouldn't do that. And my husband saying, she's not a real person. I went, she is. In here, she's a real person.
Yeah. And I suppose she's got to be to be able to tell the story. I mean, to be able to talk about somebody murdering somebody else, whatever method, you've got to get in the head of that person, haven't you? So, so that's great. Now, whereabouts, are the books available, your non-fiction and your Mum's the Word, are they available in paperback or hardback or ebook or?
They are all available in paperback or ebook. Now, basically, you could buy on Amazon or you can go into a bookshop and order them. But I haven't gone down the audio side of it. I don't think I'm a famous enough author to be doing something like that. And hardback, to me, you've got to have really made your mark. And I am just a wee woman that writes about farming and murdering people because it's fun. But yeah, you can go into a bookshop and order my books, or you can order them on Amazon.
Wonderful, that's great. And where can people, if people like the sound of your books and they want to sort of ask you a question or whatever, where can they contact you? Are you on social media? And have you got a website?
I wrote it down now. Where did I write it? I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget it, and I can't find a bit of paper now. I am
if you can't find it, we'll come back to it while you're, later in the...
Too many pieces of paper. Oh God, I don't know where I wrote it. I did write it down. But I'm on Twitter, and I'm very political, so anyone who's easily offended, please don't... Well, you can follow me on Twitter, but I'm just warning you now, I'm really, really political on Twitter. So that's at Lorraine Author. And I'm on Facebook at Lorraine Author. I think that's right. And I also have my Facebook page, Sustainable Smallholding, if anyone's interested in the farming side, because I love that. That is my first love.
Great, wonderful. And, you were saying that sort of Mum's the Word, did that come out last year or this year, was it?
That came out last year.
So what are you up to now?
What am I up to now? Right. I don't live a normal life. My children would be the first to confirm that. So we've been living here for 4 years, and we love France. It's brilliant. It's there's no food shortages. We appear to have a government that actually cares about us.
Yeah, appears so, yeah.
Healthcare is fantastic. But COVID was really hard. And like a lot of people, we sat and really evaluated what we were about and what we were doing. Now, I'm nearly 60, my husband's 63, and we run luxury jeets, which is great. And we make...
Great when you can have people, yeah.
Well, yeah, and we make piles of money out of it. But we sat last year and we decided it's been really hard, and we have a big place here. And from leaving our small holding in Cornwall to come here was a great move, but it's not a small holding. And we both miss that. So we put our house on the market in March, and we've sold, and we are moving in October, not back to the UK. We are moving 40 minutes down the road to a little farm.
Wow, very nice.
And I think my children are like, okay, you're getting older and you're returning to farming, but it's very small. And we'll keep a couple of sheep, and if I get my way, I'll keep a couple of ducks as well, but I'm not telling him that yet.
Yeah, you'll just sneak them in once you get moved.
Yeah, they'll be silent ducks. He won't hear them. He won't know they're there.
That's the plan anyway. But that's great. So, are you working on another? Obviously, as you say, you've got a lot going on. But are you working on another fiction book to follow? Now, is this like a follow-on from Mum's the Word, or is it separate?
No, it's another murder book. Yeah. But it's not a follow-on. It's going to be called Murder at the Moulin, and it's going to be a murder set in France at a watermill. Right. And I'm halfway through it, and then all this stuff about the house sale happened, and I can't concentrate, so I've had to stop. But this is the problem, because I don't plan on paper. It's still up there. It's still running through my head, and it's following the same path. And to be honest, the story hasn't changed, and I'm really happy with the story. So there's a murder, there's a bit of a love story. There's a really angry man who he's so full of hate and anger. And I won't give the ending away, but
no, don't give
the character. It's so interesting the way it's developing. So I'm hoping, if we move in October, I'm hoping to get that out in the spring next year.
Yeah, so that's something we can look forward to in 2022.
Yeah.
That's great. So what we'll do now is we will start to pack your suitcase, ready to go to Montague Island. Now, just for anybody who's listening for the first time and doesn't know what the show's about, Montague Island was a fictitious island created by Mike Craven in The Curator, one of his Tilly and Poe series. And it's Montague Island, as I say, it's a fictional island. It's off the coast of Cumbria, so it's not a desert island by any means. And I spoke to Mike, and he said, fine, yeah, can use the name. So there wasn't a problem there. And as I say, it's like a book version of Desert Island Discs is the best way I can think of explaining it. And you will take along with you 7 books, a CD, a DVD, a food, and a luxury item. Now, there is a fictional, if that's the right word, Kindle on the island with all the Tilly and Poe books from Mike Craven, so you will have something already there to read. But you take your 7 books with you. So what is the first book that you're going to take along with you, Lorraine?
Okay, now the books that I picked, they're not in any order of importance. And I've only got some of them here because I'm packing. So I've got about 700, 800 books, and I've had to start packing. So this is probably my favourite book ever. by Claudius. Now, I watched the TV programme in the 70s and I was hooked. I was absolutely hooked with the actors, with the story, with the setting. It was fab. So I bought the book. And Robert Graves is a fantastic writer. And I mean, this is the terrible thing. This man is responsible for me going and signing up for a degree with the Open University in Roman and classic history.
Wow. And so, have you finished that now? Have you
done it. I've got an honours degree, and I did it all in Roman history, and it was brilliant. And that book, this man's fault.
He caused it,
So it's great. I love it. I love the characters. It's obviously based on real events, but it's Robert Graves's take on it. But it's so well written. I mean, I don't know if you can see, the pages are yellow. And it's an old penguin. It's falling apart. The spine's busting, everything.
Yeah, well used. Yeah,
never get rid of it. Yeah. So that's my first book.
Yeah, and as regards sort of that book, would you say that the sort of the book was very different to the film or to the series?
The TV series was very watchable, but the book goes into so much more depth in the main character, which is Claudius, and his relationship with his family, because they're not a nice family. I mean, they're all murdering each other and they're all looking for power.
Yeah, and it's a big power thing, isn't it?
Yeah, but it's the way he has written it. He's kept with the events, and there's little footnotes about dates and things, because I like to check these things.
Yeah.
But you could almost imagine yourself there sitting at the table having a meal with a man. The character was so lifelike. Yeah. So it was brilliant.
It was transported.
I just love it.
Great choice, and lovely the story behind you doing. I'm just finishing the first year of my Open University degree. I'm doing psychology.
I love it. The textbooks are so great.
They are. They're really good.
And it's like, people knock it. I mean, it's both my kids have got degrees, and they went, "Oh, but your degree's just for the Open University." And I went, "Oh, I did this while holding down a full-time job."
Exactly,
I'll have you know.
But anybody who's out there is listening, if they've got time on their hands because of COVID or for whatever, or they just want to improve their mental health, have a go at
Good for you. Good for you.
Have a go at one of the Open University courses, and it's great. So that's your book number one. So what's book number two?
Okay, book number two is, and I haven't got a copy of this because it's packed, John Seymour's new complete book of self-sufficiency. Has the Bible, and it's really dated now, because when he wrote this, I mean, it was the 70s, I think, but everything has moved on so much now. But we're having this resurgence because, and I think this is the thing with COVID, it really made people wonder, where's my food coming from? Where's the food security? How do I know how the meat that I'm eating has been brought up and produced? And I got this before I started smallholding, because I wanted to find out more before I started it. And it's really interesting, but there was some of it is just like so out of date.
Yeah.
But it was the man's enthusiasm for his subject and the way that he could put that over to a complete beginner without making it sound as if he was talking down to them. And this is the thing about a really good author. He has that voice, and in non-fiction, you're wanting someone to encourage you and to be walking beside you on your journey, not talking down to you and telling you you've got it wrong. Yeah. So I love the book.
Great, wonderful, I like that. So that's Self-Sufficiency. And what's the third book you're going to be taking with you?
Sheamus, the poet. Did this at secondary school in English, higher English in Scotland. And we were doing all these, Gerard Manley Hopkins, and I was like, oh my God. And then Sheamus Heaney, and the book is field work. And every poem in there, as you were reading it out, or as someone was reading it and you were listening to it, you were in the countryside, you were there.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic. And his use of language and his use of words, I could really get it. And it was, I came out of English and she called me back and she said, what are you doing? And I said, can I ask you what the name of the book is? Can I write it? And she said, take the copy, give me it back at the end of term.
Right.
And it was brilliant. I used to sit and read that at night. My mum's sitting there watching Dallas, right? Mrs. Crosby in her big shoulder pad dresses, and she's, what are you doing? I said, I'm reading this book about poetry, and she's, okay. Sheamus Heaney, the master. And I'm not really into poetry, but his was so evocative and of a time and a place.
And it's probably the enthusiasm from your teacher as well. I think that can be a lot. If they're very enthusiastic, it's like a hook that draws you in, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
But great that it sort of stayed with you all these years.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so that's the poet. So what's number 4?
Right, hold on a minute. I have to mark one off. Don't want to repeat myself. Right. Okay. Eleanor Oliphant is completely fine.
Right, it's completely fine.
Now,
and what's that all about?
Now, this is not my usual kind of book, and I'll be dead honest, I didn't buy this. We have a thing here in France. Every village has a little library. When you finish a book, you put it in the shelf, and you can pick up another one.
Yeah.
And I picked this up, and I thought, oh, aye, that looks interesting. And I'd seen people talking about it, and some were saying, oh, it's really depressing, and some were saying, oh, I really enjoyed it. And I gave it a go, and the story is very sad, but the humour of the writer lifts it. And I could only read a couple of chapters at a time, and then I would put it down. And you were thinking about it during the day, so I'd go out and I would be doing a bit of gardening or cutting the grass, and it would just be... like, I wonder where this is going, because I'm thinking, this is not going to end well. It's not going to end well, and I don't like books like that. And you're investing in the character of Eleanor, and you're thinking, at the beginning, she's really weird. She is really weird. And then as you get to know her, because things are beginning to come out about her life and how she lives and her friendships, and you're beginning to think, it's not really her fault that she's like that. And all the time in the back of my head was, this is going to be a horrible ending, and I'm going to hate this book for it, because I'm starting to like her. And then I got to the end, and I'm not going to give it away, but I put the book down, and I thought, I couldn't read it again, because I knew what was going to happen.
Yeah.
But it did change the way I thought about a lot of things.
Good.
And although I think a lot of people will say, oh, it's really hard to get into, all I would say is persevere with it and just take it a little bit at a time, but give it a go, because at the end it's worth it, because the story unfolds and everything becomes clear, and it's a great ending. So I can't complain at all, and not the kind of book I would normally read.
So what would you describe it as? Is it like a saga, or?
It's not a saga. It's what does it say on the book? Right, it's a #1 bestseller, and it's contemporary fiction. Right. And I would say it probably, and I hate to say this, but it's probably women's fiction.
Yeah.
And I'm very wary about saying that, because as a farmer, I work in a man's world. And if somebody said, oh, farming's for men, I'd get dead annoyed. Yeah. But I think it's got quite a lot of depth to it. Yeah. And I think possibly more women than men have the time to just read slowly so they get everything out of it.
Yeah.
And I know that's very sweeping and generalising.
No, I know what you mean.
I don't mean it to be, but
Yeah.
but great story. But it's not a saga. It's like a life story that's uplifting.
Yeah.
And that it shares what's going on in Eleanor's life. Not always what's going on in her head, because you don't always know what's going on in her head. But the author she's done a wonderful job with it, and I think it's well worth reading.
Great, wonderful book. So that'll keep your mind going while you're on the island. So we're now on book number 5. So what's your 5th choice going to be?
Right, another one I don't have because I packed it away. Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol.
Oh, I think you're the first. We've had a few Charles Dickens, but I think you're the first one that's picked A Christmas Carol. But great story.
Well,
why would you take that one?
It's just, I think it's for the season. And I always start reading it at the beginning of December. Every year I read it. And I read it in a night and I end up sitting blubbing. I sit there and I blub, and if my husband's there, he just goes, "For God's sake." And I'll say, "I don't care. It's quite sad."
Yeah.
And I said, "It's a brilliant story. It's a fantastic story." And and now my daughter tells me, because she did English lit at A-level, and she said, "You're either a Dickens fan or you're a Thomas Hardy fan."
Oh. Yeah.
And I tried Thomas Hardy and I couldn't get into it. And I was surprised because it's set in the countryside. It's set in that kind of time that I quite like. Couldn't get into it. I think I am a Charles Dickens fan.
Yeah.
And I've read a few of them, and he is very romantic in his writing. And I mean that not romantic in a love sense, but romantic as in the late Victorian ideas of benevolence and sympathy and looking after your fellow man. And I think it's the most wonderful story of its time, and it never fails to make me cry. Never fails. and I look at it now, and I cannot help, and this is the political bit, and I do apologise. I cannot help but read that book and see so many parallels with life today in the UK.
Yeah.
You know, there's the rich and the poor, and there's like the answer to, you know, it's like Ebenezer Scrooge saying to the two men who come to collect on behalf of the charity, and he said, "Are there no workhouses?" And it just resonates so much for me.
Yeah, that's it.
And I think this is the thing with a great writer, that their books, it's like
Timeless.
Orwell's 1984. It's timeless.
Yeah.
And I've learned so much about his language and the pace. So when you're reading Dickens, it's like everything is on an even kind of pace, and he carries you along with him, and you want to go to the next chapter. You want to know what's happening next. I've read it about 40, 50 times. But if I was going to Montague Island and I was ever feeling that I needed a wake-up call and a reconnection with society, and feeling probably a wee bit melodramatic and down in the dumps, that would be the book.
Great, and you've all got to have a book like that. So that's a great book, and as you say, it's timeless. So that's great. So we're now on to book number 6. So what?
Right, Bill Bryson, A Short History of Nearly Everything.
Nearly everything, yeah.
I think this should be a textbook at school.
Right.
It is written in a humorous but easy to understand manner. It explains everything from how the universe started to how a baby is made, not in graphic detail, but the kind of mechanics. But I just think, I mean, I read that, and I like to think I'm pretty well educated, and I've got a broad general education, but I learned loads from that. And every time I go back into it, I pick up something new, and I think, oh, I missed that the first time. But he is a witty writer, and I think if you're trying to educate someone, to do it with a giggle and a laugh makes it so much easier.
Definitely, yeah. Rather than just, theory. You've got to have a bit of humour.
Now, I've got to admit,
people remember the humorous bits, don't they?
I have got every single one of his books.
Great.
There's some I don't like as much as other ones, but I love that.
Yeah.
And it would definitely be going in the suitcase.
Yeah, that's super. So we're now putting the last book in the suitcase. So what's that going to be?
Right, I haven't got it because it's packed, but it's Graham Norton, and it's Holding.
So is that, just remind me, is that one of his fiction books, or is that like his life story?
No, it's a fiction book. It's set in Ireland, and it's an unexplained disappearance.
Oh.
Now, the story itself, it's pretty good, and it's kind of written a wee bit like, well, it's a wee bit like an Agatha Christie, but he develops his character so well. And I think he's had a big influence. Reading that book had a big influence on how I was writing the characters in Mum's the Word, because I wanted them to be earthy, farm-working, normal mums. And when I read his characters, I could see how he'd done that, and I liked it. So I stole it.
Why not?
Well, I think it's a big compliment to do that to another writer, to say, I liked how you did that so well that I actually stole your idea.
You influenced me, yeah.
Yeah.
That's right. And did it your own way. Yeah.
You look at these people and you think, oh, he's a celebrity. People are only buying the books because he's famous.
Celebrity authors do well on book sales, but the books aren't always.
I've read a couple and I haven't rated them, but I would buy more of his books because he can write, and he can write well.
Great.
So I was quite impressed at that.
That's an interesting one. Yeah, interesting. So that's Holding by Graham Norton.
Yep.
That's great. So we've got all your 7 books packed away now. So we've only got a few more things to pack. So we believe that on this fictitious Montague Island, there is about an hour a day of electricity. So we thought, well, you can take along a CD and a DVD, but you can only listen to them for an hour a day. So again, it's going to be a choice. So what CD would you take?
I would take, don't laugh, ABBA's Gold album.
Yeah, we've had that before, so you're not the first one.
There is a story behind that.
Oh, go on, tell me.
I have to share this because it's quite funny. Before I left Glasgow to move to Cornwall, I went on a night out, right? And it was a girls' night out. And we started off at this girl's house, and she'd hired costumes. And we all get dressed up as nuns, right? And we were bouncing up and down on a trampoline in her garden to the sound of music. Right, it was great. We were all absolutely plastered. And then we took all the costumes off, and we went on the train into Glasgow, and we came back. I vaguely remember coming back, and we were all singing ABBA songs in the train, much to the annoyance of all the other passengers in the train.
And that stayed with you all these years.
Oh, it was great fun. It was just the best night out. But I love ABBA. I think they're great songs. I think they're quite happy and bouncy. And I mean, I tend to put them on, and I tend to put them on YouTube and watch the videos, and I jig about in the office, and I'm supposed to be doing something else, like doing the accounts or something. And I put it on, and it just energizes you for the thing you've got to do. So I say, right, 10 minutes of ABBA, and then I'll do the month's accounts.
Yeah. So you get your enjoyment before you do the hard stuff.
Yeah.
So that's great. And as you say, on the island, that's just the kind of thing that you need to
exactly
get you up and going. So you're also allowed, as I say, to take a DVD. Now, this can be a film, it can be a TV series, or, you know, it might be concert footage, whatever. So what would you take as a DVD?
What would I take? Oh, that's so hard. I love movies, but I think if I could only have one, I think it would have to be It's a Wonderful Life.
Mm. Again, uplifting, isn't it? Yeah.
It's just wonderful. And when you've watched it a few times, it's the tiny little bits, the side comments, and that has me sniggering, and it's like, God, you know, I missed that's the first time I've seen that.
Yeah.
And it's beautifully shot. It's the actors and the actresses is fantastic, and it's a lovely story. So that would be what I would be taking. Total sentimentality, but what the hell?
That's it. That's what you need, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I'm on an island on my own.
You can have your own little, and you know how to make cider, so you can have your own little party. Just like there's an apple tree or a pear tree or an apple tree on the island. So now this leads very well on to the next item. So this is like a food. Now it can be a food ingredient. It can be a favourite meal because, as I say, it is a fictitious island. So we can make, you know, a reoccurring meal, so to speak. So what would you take as a food?
As a reoccurring meal?
It can be a meal, it can be a single ingredient, it's up to you.
Okay. Don't be shocked, because I'm living in France. I can basically have cordon bleu cooking and wonderful stuff and foie gras and beautiful wine. What I would take to the island is a Wensleydale ploughman's lunch.
Wow. Wensleydale ploughman's lunch.
I cannot get Wensleydale here, and I miss it so much. And I love salad. And I would have to have a nice crispy apple. But they have lovely cheese here, but it's all soft cheese, and I'm lactose intolerant. I can't eat it.
Well, earlier I was telling you about a lady author who I've also who I've also interviewed for the show from France, Leslie Cryer. Now she's a big cheese addict as well, so I have to put you two in touch with one another. But yeah, it's different. We've never had a Wensleydale's ploughman before.
No, it's like you know. My son says, "Mum, what do you want me to bring? Do you want me to bring chocolate biscuits or tea bags?" And I'm like, Kieran, we can get that here. It's France, it's not Venezuela, we can get that. I said, can you bring me some Wensleydale?
What else is there that you love from when you lived in Scotland or in Cornwall that you can't get in France? What other kind of thing is there?
Right. From Scotland, and I've never seen it anywhere else apart from in Scotland, Ayrshire bacon. Now, I can get bacon here. It's very different. It's like streaky bacon. It's not the same at all. But Ayrshire bacon, I missed. Really nice morning rolls. And that's the Scottish thing, because when we went to Cornwall, they did oven bottom baps and things. And it's not the same. It's a creation of beauty and lightness, and you cut it open and it's crusty in the top, but inside it's lovely and soft. I can't get them. So, but we can get
just as an aside, what's one food that you really love from France that you can't get in the UK?
Oh, gosh. Well, they eat snails and oysters and stuff here, but I'm not really into that. I do try, but they do these specialities, and it's like our bar's very good, they're very friendly in our village, and she'll say, try this, and I'll say, what is it? Yeah. And she'll say, just try it, and I'll say, okay. And I'll say, right, it hasn't got any milk in it, because I'll be really ill if it's got milk in it. And she says, no, there's no milk in it. And it's like a soup. And it's a white soup, and it's got garlic. It's really garlicky, and I'm okay with that. And then she drops the bombshell. it's got egg white whisk into it. And I'm like, what? And she says, and I thought, oh no, I wish I hadn't told me that. I wish you hadn't told me that. So I'm very kind of wary, but they eat every part of the animal here. So in the supermarket, you'll see chicken legs, and I don't mean like chicken thighs, I mean feet. And they eat that. And it's like, thank God they don't have that in the UK. I don't think there's anything I'd really like to take if I went back to the UK that I would take with me. Truffles, I don't like truffles. I can't eat them. They're a wee bit pungent for me. But I think I don't think there is anything I would take back.
Yeah, so we win there, I suppose, don't we? That's great. So finally, we've got your luxury item now. As I say, because this is an imaginary island, it can be as outrageous or as, you know, sane as you wish. So what would you take? What would you? And we have had we've had people that take a pillow. We've had people take camper vans. So we've had, you know, all extremes. So what would you take as your luxury item?
Well, the first thought I had was going to say a few bars of soap, because I'm on an island and I like to keep clean, and then I thought, that's not really a luxury item. And if I'm on an island on my own, no one will care if I smell. So I thought, what would I have? And I'm not into gadgets. And I like a country life, but I really would like to have my mobile phone, because I know, but I love to talk to my son.
Yeah, but there's no signal on the island.
Well, I don't know. But you said there was electricity.
There's 1 hour of electricity a day. That's all you get.
So I'd need to talk really fast.
So you'd take your mobile phone.
Yeah.
So and I hope that you got a signal.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, first of all, many thanks for going through all them, because there's some great ideas and I'm sure a lot of people be like I've been doing, scribbling away, you know, to check out some of the books you've chosen and the, you know, the CD, DVD, etc. So thanks for that. Now, just before we go, do you want to just remind anyone who's maybe just skipped and, you know, tuned in late or whatever, just remind them about your books?
Okay, well, I'm Lorraine Turnbull, and I tend to write about countryside and farming. So I have a few books out there that are non-fiction, including Sustainable Smallholding, which is selling really well, and I'm very proud of it. I think it's a great book.
Right.
Or if you're thinking of moving to France, like me, you could buy How to Live the Good Life in France, which is basically how to go about moving, how to find a house, how to negotiate all the red tape that you'll have to do. So if you're thinking of moving to France, buy that. And if you want to know more about me personally, like my story, what makes me tick, how crazy I really am, you can buy my memoir, which is Living Off the Land. And it tells the story of how I managed to make my dream of living on a small holding come true.
Great. So, now I've got to ask one question, because I took your bio notes off I think it was off your Amazon page.
Yeah.
I saw quite a few comments about The Good Life, and all I could think of was the TV program. Yeah.
Oh, I mean, we were quite lucky, because when we had our small holding, we were next to other people who worked or lived on farms.
Yeah.
I cannot imagine how hard it would be in a suburban village to suddenly turn your garden into a farm, especially if you had neighbours like Margot and Jerry.
Yeah, as I was reading it this afternoon, I printed it off and I thought, right, I'll just read it, so I've got it right in my head. And I just kept thinking, going back to that TV program.
Oh, it was an iconic series, and it was just at the right time. But it's so many people, and I think it is people of a certain age. Obviously, if you're 20, you're not going to really identify with it.
Yeah.
But it was a program of its time.
Yeah, it was. was, and a lot of people were influenced by it, although it was a comedy and what have you. You know, a lot of people were influenced by it, and you know, sort of did what you've done, really. So that's great.
Yeah. Oh, it's not all been fun and games. There's been,
I can imagine,
you know, harrowing things and things that would break your heart, but it never put me off. And I've had a 4-year break from that, doing my Jeets here, and I miss it so much that I'm going back to do it again. So it is really a good life. Yeah,
that's great. Well, that's a great thing to end on. So thank you very much, Lorraine, for coming along tonight. We hope you have a great stay on the island, and we look forward to your next fiction release in 2022.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great to chat.
Lovely to speak to you. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.